Welcome to another episode of the Median Society. I'm your host, Anthony Mitchell, and we look forward to a spirited conversation with a hot topic that's going on in today's arena, especially for men when it comes to mental health. Tonight's guest is Mr. Eric King. Black men and mental health in the corporate space are topics that have begun to gain traction. Yet they still aren't widely considered masculine pursuits. But why not? Tonight's guest is here to help us normalize an essential aspect of a Black man's well-being. Just as we invest time in the gym, why shouldn't we prioritize the care of our minds? Mr. Eric L. King joins us, president of Mental and Emotional Wellness Centers of Ohio and a licensed professional clinical counselor. He's also a program coordinator for Strongest Together and the host of the popular on-air radio show Unapologetically Strong, broadcasting Wednesdays on WOVU 95.9 in Ohio. We welcome Mr. King to the Median Society. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. How you doing?
Doing well.
Good.
Mr. King, can you talk to the audience and let them know about your career, your journey, and what led you to the pursuit of counseling?
Wow. So let's see. I'm gonna try to make it as short as possible. So I actually started off in the tech world, and in the tech world, so I did a lot of computer programming. I was brought up programming computers, so I went to the University of Akron. So most people know Akron because of LeBron. So that's the home of LeBron James. So I went there, didn't really do well. They asked me to leave. So I was asked to leave from University of Akron. And so I went through a little bit of depression. And at the time, I didn't know what depression was. I was depressed, homeless at that time. And around that time, I was around the age of 25. I'd had my first son. And so there was a couple things that was holding me back. One, I didn't necessarily read as well as I needed to and as I did now. And so there were very few prospects for me. And so there was just a moment I had. I said, either I'm gonna go back to school and be a counselor, or I'm gonna go back, or mental health at the time, or I'm gonna go back to be a teacher. And oddly enough, I didn't necessarily flip a coin. I really looked to see what type of tests either one of them had in order to be a part of it, and I decided to pick counseling. Unbeknownst to me that it had a lot of reading and a lot of tests, but I did okay. So once I got into counseling, one of the beautiful parts was my gender as well as my um, race was an asset. There were very few men, black men, in mental health at the time, and so it allowed me to actually strive. So I went through and earned a couple degrees, so a bachelor's degree, a master's degree in clinical psychology, and another master's degree in counseling psychology, and took me on my way to becoming who I am now. And right now, I've been in the mental health field for roughly 20 years. And so my wife and I created Mental and Emotional Wellness Centers of
Hmm.
Ohio to do two things. One, to teach clinicians how to be the very best type of clinician they can be. And secondly, how to actually do this thing called mental health from a business standpoint. So everyone that is under our umbrella actually learns how to be their own entrepreneur or their own business.
Hmm.
So that's who I am, and that's how I got here. And so my specialty is definitely now within the last 24 months is working with black men specifically,
Oh, that's
or
awesome.
men specifically, I should say.
Gotcha. So when you look at your overall mission, what is your overall mission when it comes to mental health and emotional wellness?
Yeah. The key part is I want to ensure that individuals are being the very best that they can. So that's my overall mission.
Hmm.
So a lot of times when I'm working with clients, there's a specific trajectory that I follow. And that trajectory at the very end, because you start counseling to actually finish,
Hmm.
contrary to popular belief that you be in it for 20 and X amount of years. My mission is to get them to literally stop lying to themselves, for them to actually look at some of the things that they were taught and restructure those in a more healthy manner.
Hmm.
And so that's my overall mission. No matter what client I work with or what age, I would like for them to get to a point to where they can see reality and they can see their reality and their part in their reality as well.
Yeah, yeah. This is so important. I mean, everything that you're saying, and and tonight I definitely want to dig in because I think it affects a lot of us. I mean, in the workplace, whether it be in the workplace in general, whether it be just in your family lives,
Hmm.
you dealing with a spouse, dealing with you know parent issues or whatever it may be. So hopefully tonight, what we want to do is give the audience an opportunity to learn something from you and my conversation that we're going to have. So,
Okay.
what do you think is often challenging for Black men to admit feeling hurt or struggling mentally?
Wow. Great question. Um, So, in the space that I'm actually in is a private practice. So, I've had the luxury of working in hospitals, in community mental health agencies, and in private practice. One of the things that is very difficult for men to actually, admit that something is wrong. So, I spend quite a few, quite a few sessions attempting to just, look through some of their habits
Hmm.
and some of the things that have gotten them to this point, and convincing them that possibly some of the ways that they were socialized or some of the things that they were taught from the old heads or back in the day
Hmm.
may not be valuable or useful right now. So one of the things, or the main thing that I do in working with men, is literally attempting to get them to see a certain level or consider a certain level of their upbringing that may be outdated. So
Hmm.
it's just like software. So looking them to, helping them see that they are using at times to cope, right? So we're either going to cope healthy way or unhealthy way.
Hmm.
We're attempting to get those individuals to see that they're using outdated software or outdated ways of thinking or
Hmm.
managing, and get them to be more healthy or look at more healthy coping. So getting them to actually see, or I hate to say it, convince them that their mental health is one, valuable, and two, needs to be amended just a
Hmm.
bit.
That's wow. That's a lot. Hey, and you know what? That's good information. I mean, because we all, I'm sitting here blown away just by your description and what you're saying, and helping us to get to see, some of our past is
Yes,
causing a problem for our future.
yes, yes,
That's major. So
yes,
can you dig into that a little bit more,
yeah,
especially when it comes to specific factors about familial influences,
yeah,
and things
yeah,
that we were
yeah.
trained in?
So think about it like this. So when we're born, if anyone has kids, right? When we're born, we have at least 5% of who we are today, right?
Hmm.
So we got 3%, let's say, is DNA, and 2% is your temperament or your birth temperament, which is a part of your personality,
Hmm.
right? So over your lifetime, okay, so today is 5/29/2024, right?
Yep.
Whenever you were born, over your lifetime, your life begins to expand. So after you're born, you're exposed to your parents, and then whoever they expose you to, right? Your closest family, so on and so forth, to where think about think about it as if you are a empty vessel,
Uh-huh.
and all these things are pouring into you. First is from your home, then it's school, then it's your community, then it's A, B, and C, right? And so all these things are poured into you. Some of these things are healthy, some of these things are unhealthy. And so a lot of times what I'm doing, if I'm looking at it from a family oriented process,
Hmm.
we're looking at it from how did your family manage emotions, and just dissecting it from the standpoint of possibly, especially if you're a male, you weren't allowed to emote.
Yep.
And so normalizing, emotions. So a lot of times, to be perfectly candid, I have two sheets that I will break out within the first, I'm gonna go ahead and say first, couple, 2, 3 sessions. First is a feeling
Hmm.
sheet that has each emotions, our main emotions, broken down from small to medium to large. And I express to them that over our lifetime, we're supposed to matriculate and mature on our level of emotional communication. So that's
Hmm.
one sheet that I bring. And the very first thing that most people say is, I cannot believe that there's these many emotions. And I'm like, yes, they are. So that's sheet one.
Hmm.
The second sheet I bring in are these things called defense mechanisms, which are very healthy.
The struggle is if we spend too much time defending our emotions or suppressing our emotions, we get stuck. And so if we're constantly defending ourselves and suppressing our emotions or regressing, and we never have the processing part, that's that moment of quiet or that moment of collection
Hmm.
with other individuals to actually talk about how we feel. If we don't have that, then we will put a moratorium on our growth emotionally,
Mm.
mentally, and sometimes physically, to be perfectly candid.
Hmm. Wow. I don't think people even understand that, when you're using the word moratorium, I mean, you don't even think like that.
Mm,
And it's something that we all do.
yeah.
We stun our growth. Wow. I mean, just to progress and, yeah, yeah, we're going to dig in. I mean, this is good information. I mean,
Welcome to
it's
my
a,
world.
it's
I
a
do this
different way of
frequently.
thinking. how how does, when you go back and you talk to clients and just people in general, how do you get them to realize that their upbringing
Yeah.
has affected them for the negative or the positive? How do you get them
Yeah.
to realize that
Yeah,
without getting them upset?
it's really difficult because there are certain truths that, so first of all, if you're in counseling, you're
Hmm.
going to be uncomfortable, right? You're going to have a level of discomfort. We as human beings have never learned anything comfortable. Everything that we have acquired, every skill that we've gotten from riding bike to walking to talking
Hmm.
has given us a bit of discomfort. So, if the first thing is to help a person realize that it's okay to be uncomfortable or
Hmm.
have discomfort or whatever have you. Next, after that, to answer your question more specifically as it relates to family, some of the things depends on what modality I'm using. So if we're using cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, we're
Hmm.
looking at how the person, cognitively process something based off of their behavior. So that's one. Another way is that I use or modality that I use is really what's called narrative therapy
Hmm.
or narrative. It's a narrative modality to where they're literally telling their story, and it's my job while they're telling their story to take certain things from their story and put it back on them to say, if A, B, and C happened, you know, do you remember how you felt at that time? And that's why I start everything off with those two sheets, the
Hmm.
feeling sheet, so that they can have the vocabulary to, discuss, how they felt and then how they defended themselves or how they suppress their emotions or, what they use in the moment to
Hmm.
not to feel. So a lot of times when I'm working with a client and getting them to actually see some of their unhealthy as well as the healthy,
Hmm.
right? I'm utilizing the things that they actually say. And so there's no machines in my office, right? So we don't have an MRI machine, an X ray machine, or any of that. It really goes back to the counselor's ability to actually stay in the counseling realm
Hmm.
and use the training that they actually, had. And hopefully they went to a good school and did, what they were supposed to do.
Hmm.
But that's usually how I approach it because we have to take all these things that we're taught and utilize them in our population. And let's be perfectly candid. Most of these things, 95 to 98% of these things were normed or more or less theorized on non-black males and non-males,
Yeah.
non-minority populations. So when I'm working with a client, I'm taking in what they have and trying to, in bring together my teaching in order to best serve them in the best way possible.
So
I know that's a lot.
no, 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 no. That's good information. So my question is, what age would you think that it's best to start black boys at?
Yeah,
Because that might make a world of difference if we can
yeah,
capture them.
yeah. So it depends on the household.
Okay.
So in other words, so if we're looking at black boys specifically,
Hmm.
depending on how comfortable the parents are with communicating emotions, the level of healthy emoting,
Hmm.
as well as healthy coping skills, dictates how things move forward. Now,
Okay.
once again, you can do everything as great as you possibly can as a parent. So where do things begin for most individuals to go awry? middle school.
Hmm.
So middle school is a very interesting physiological, mental, as well as social, social change in a child's life.
Hmm.
That's the point where they're going, those hormones are firing, right? They're going through bodily changes. And depending on how their parents, as well as their trusted adults, deal with that and communicate that, dictates the trajectory.
Hmm.
And even if you have parents that are quite attentive, that are quite, there for their child, that child still may need something because, to be perfectly candid, it takes a village. And a part of that village, if you remember, was a
Hmm.
council or an individual that was not a part of the family that the individuals went to actually talk to and talk about some struggles that they had. So
Gotcha.
when we're talking about it takes a village, it takes, if we're going to use that, use that word or use that motto, we're going to look at it as the complete village, which includes doctors, which includes counselors, which includes lawyers, all those other individuals.
Yep.
So middle school, to answer your question more specifically,
Hmm.
is where we begin to see things, just, go off a little bit because they're trying to find who they are and they need a little assistance.
Okay. So being that we're in a demographic and race that doesn't really want black males to speak about
Yeah.
their emotions. And I think we're coming into an era where more black men are doing this, and realizing that we're hurt, that we're
Yeah.
continuing to be hurt.
Yeah.
What point does untreated emotional pain become irreversibly damaging to us?
Well, this is the thing. As long as you're alive, it can be reversed.
Okay.
Not too long ago, I had the great pleasure of allowing myself to emote about a friend of mine who committed suicide.
Hmm.
And the medium is the radio show that I was able, I stood that day and said, okay, I'm going to give my time, I'm going to use this hour on my radio show to literally talk about black male suicide.
Hmm.
And so you know, the moment that you are no longer with us is the moment where it cannot be reversed. But up until all of that, everything can be reversed.
Okay.
And when we're talking about reverse, we're not actually talking about going backwards. We're talking about diverting to a healthier path.
Hmm.
So in other words, if a person, to be perfectly candid, my friend that committed suicide, I could not have stopped him, because an individual that commits suicide or have that idea in their mind, they're
Hmm.
going to do it.
Gotcha.
What could I have done? I could have paid attention to the signs that were there, that me as a black male, because this is even before I was licensed, at the time this happened, me as a black male, more or less dismissed because of our socialization of how men are.
Hmm.
And so we miss, it was a whole group, right? If you go back and listen to the episode, I discussed the whole group, but it was a whole group of us
Hmm.
who did not allow ourselves to get past our male socialization in order to catch the signs. And maybe if we had caught the signs, maybe, but we don't know, because maybe that's just simply what he wanted to do.
Yep.
I talk about on that same, episode, I talk about Regina King, and she talked about her son,
Hmm.
about he was just ready to go. So, more specifically, to go back to your question, and I thank you for allowing me to have that moment,
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
just everything, up until the point that a person is no longer with us,
Hmm.
you know, everything else can be redirected towards a healthier path.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, it's you know, I think we carry things with us. Obviously, I mean, there's no doubt about
Hmm.
that. Which kind of segues into this next part of this is workplace failure. And
Yeah,
feeling that you're never succeeding. I
yeah,
think that's something that black men in corporate America. I know myself as an executive. I at times probably feel like I'm never winning, or I'm
yeah,
constantly being challenged. So, what are some challenges that in your practice and in your experience? What are some challenges black men face in corporate
yeah,
workplaces when they're talking to you, or particularly in the terms of treatment and recognition compared to their white counterparts?
yeah. So very interesting.
where, and I really appreciate the concept of imposter syndrome that, over the past 10 years has
Mhm.
come up. What I would like to add to that is this concept of the golden apple. The golden apple is special, and it happens definitely in black and brown, or either underserved or poor families, to where if you just go to college,
Mhm.
everything will be okay.
Yeah.
And so what we're finding, or what I found very early in my practice when I was working, is that I had these 30 and third 20 late 20s, mid 30s individuals who have done who did everything that was asked of them, and they still didn't find happiness.
Mhm.
And that's when I began to see that, wait a minute, okay, this is the golden apple syndrome, because each individual had the exact same story,
Mhm.
to where they were told or socialized and saying, if you just do A, B, and C, everything else will work out.
Mhm.
And so what we're seeing in the business realm is individuals who have that job or have that permission, that position, that are just not feeling fulfilled. Not only that, we're also seeing how, you know, if you do all those things, you are exceptional. And when you go into places, you're the only face that looks like you.
Mhm.
And so dealing with, the concept of, am I good enough? Imposter syndrome, dealing with those unmet needs that turn into insecurities. Am I smart enough? Do I, do I have what it take? Do I need to assimilate? Right. So, a lot of the things that I see in individuals in corporate America, or at a higher level, is literally getting them to understand
Mhm.
that they are enough, that they literally are enough. They did everything and they are enough. And they are enough and they can excel. But it goes back to that teaching that all you had to do, if you just do this, or, get to this level, everything will be okay.
Mhm.
Which is literally, just let's be honest, is a protective measure that parents give their kids to help motivate them to succeed,
Gotcha.
right? That's really what it was. But no one ever said, okay, let me be real with you. You're going to get there and you can do this, and you need to do this, 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 and that. And
Mhm.
happiness or success is literally based off of how you judge it. No one says that part or add that
Mm.
part, to the equation.
Mm. Mm. Okay. How? So, what are some steps that you're telling black men that often have to navigate the workplace dynamics? Because there's two things: they're either really trying to fit in,
Hmm.
or they're going along to get along with whatever the majority is throwing their way. So, like, how does a person bring their whole authentic self to work when you still have to stay within a realm
Yep.
so that you can progress, or
Yes.
if you desire to progress? So what are
Yes.
some of the things you're telling people?
So one of the things, so a lot that I tell people is to use work for exactly what it is. It's
Hmm.
a way to pay the actual bills. It is not who you are.
Okay.
And so that is the very first thing that I do, is help them see that this thing called work is simply a vehicle to get you where you want to be.
Hmm.
Secondly, the thing that I tell them is they cannot be their authentic self at work, because if they're their authentic self at work, it is connected to monetary gain.
Hmm.
So it's not about being your authentic self, it's being your most actualized and assertive self in a way that help you, right? So that's actualized. That's, who you are. You feel confident and you belong, while understanding that yes, you can have work friends, and yes, you spend 40 plus time,
Hmm.
but this is not your world. And so what tends to happen is individuals make their title, their job, their corporation, their
Hmm.
work, who they are.
Yep.
And so the last thing I tell them is they really need to understand how to unplug. So I do a visualization exercise for those that struggle with the inability to actually disconnect from work.
Hmm.
I have them go through their route with their eyes closed. And I ask them, certain significant milestones that they see. And what we do is we practice putting our work in a briefcase and leaving it at that significant milestone that they actually have or visualize. And so when they pass that milestone on their way home, they put their briefcase down cognitively. As they're on their way to work, they
Hmm.
put that briefcase up cognitively and make it to work.
And so we have to allow people or teach people, in all honesty, to disconnect from work
Hmm.
and disconnect your identity from work.
Powerful. That's powerful. So, I'm sitting here thinking about that, and I'm like, okay, how can I apply that? I'm gonna apply that. I'm gonna apply that tomorrow.
Good. Good.
what 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 have you noticed are some major gaps in support for Black employees within corporate America, that's causing this extra stress or extra burden that we as Black men have to go through?
Yeah, yeah. So one thing is the education on the insurance package that is provided.
Hmm.
So, you know, there's a lot of individuals that don't actually know what EAP programs or employee assistance programs pay for a certain amount. So
Hmm.
that's one, utilizing the employee, the EAP program. Secondly, knowing your coverage. There are sometimes when we select insurance coverages that don't actually have mental health as a part of their coverage.
Hmm.
And so when they go to find someone like me, what they actually do is they can't actually see us by using their insurance. They have to actually pay for it. So that's one.
Okay.
Utilizing or understanding the benefits. At work, or when they're at work, some of the, find the thing that makes you happy at work. Now, I know that I said of emotion, so let's change it a bit. Find the thing at work that makes you excited and create and excel in that excitement. So when you're at work, because everyone has to do it, we have to find that thing that gets us up and moving forward at work. And it just can't be money.
Yep.
And if it is money, have a purpose for the money.
Hmm.
It can't just be a title. If it is a title, you have to have a purpose. The key part is if you're going to work, if you're going to excel at work, you have to have a purpose, and that purpose is directly connected to what gets you excited about being at that place.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, people don't are not excited about their work. And I have had, clients that said, okay, so what does it look like for me to transition to a different position,
Hmm.
either within my work that makes me excited or someplace else?
Mm. Okay, that's a good segue because we're going to talk about next. We're going to really dig into taking the workday home, which
Yeah.
does seem to be a troubling epidemic for
Right.
us. But on top of that, it's does the spouse, especially for
Mm.
men, does the spouse understand the dynamic and the stress level that Black males go through in the
Yeah.
workplace?
Yeah.
How can a spouse or a partner better support Black men who are struggling in the workplace?
Yeah.
That's something I'd like us to really talk about, especially when it comes to the stress and mental health issues.
Yeah, the most amazing thing is the way that an individual selects their spouse.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times when we select spouse, we're not our full self. We're connecting or selecting that part of that individual that is connected to that moment in time.
Hmm.
And so it is my hope that individuals have partners that actually mature with them. So if we're talking about, you know, how can we ask individuals who we are partner with to actually support us in our endeavors? First, we have to start with the level of communication. And when I say that is understanding that just simply because you're married, you can be married for 50 years. You have to still remember that you were socialized and brought up in two different communication styles.
Hmm.
So when we are communicating with our spouse, if we're talking about wives specifically, we have to understand that our language cannot be minimalist, because that's not how, and the research shows, you know women use more words than men. We can't be minimalist when we're talking.
Yep.
Secondly, we have to be okay with telling and inviting our spouse into our insecurities
Hmm.
when we don't feel enough, where we have an unmet need, either at home or work. And lastly, in doing so, we have to actually tell our spouse what we need from them,
Hmm.
right? We can't, let's not do this mind reading thing that, that we see in the movies, right? That serendipitous connection and
Yeah.
everything is so flowery. That's not reality. We literally have to tell this person who we've chosen to be with what we need from them.
Hmm.
And
I use the you've heard of the five love languages, is that correct?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna be real brief on this. So this is how, when I'm dealing with couples, how I deal with the five love languages. So we have these. You're walking on the beach. You see these stones, right? You grab a stone, and the stone feel A, B, and C to you, right? And you walk the beach, and you at the end of it, you found five stones that connect to you differently, right?
Hmm.
As you are learning yourself, you're understanding what you need in the moment, and you accept whatever stone it is, whether it's a gift, whether it's words of encouragement, right? So you have that. When you connect to someone who you choose to be your life partner, this
Hmm.
is the key. You have to build trust with that individual to give that individual the stones and say, when I'm feeling sad, when I'm feeling disconnected, give me this stone or give
Hmm.
me this stone, and trust that they will give you the stone. And as they give you the stone and you feel better, you give the stone back to them. So that last point, men have to be okay with telling women what they need, or their spouse what they need. And hopefully you have a spouse, and you've chosen a spouse that is open to meeting needs.
Hmm.
And that's the key part.
No, that's deep. But would you say it's even advisable? So when you're bringing things home, all of the issues that we may face, is it even advisable to confide in the spouse and bring that workplace difficulty
Yeah,
into your household?
I wouldn't say completely. I'm gonna
Okay.
be perfectly honest with you.
Hmm.
There's there are times when we can be too open with what
Hmm.
we're going on
Yep.
at work. You don't necessarily need to talk about or tell the spouse what's going on at work.
Hmm.
A lot of times, just talk about how you're feeling and the behavior associated with it at
Okay.
work. Because what that actually does, it allows you to speak from a level by which they can support you. They can't necessarily holistically and helpfully give you advice or direction on
Hmm.
work stuff, but they can support you and know when you communicate, know when it's time to actually allow you to be in the mood that you are in, and also be a part of your healing process or your opening process when it's time to transition out of that mood. So a lot of times, it goes back more to about speaking about your emotions
Hmm.
and communicating what you need from your spouse in order to support you in that moment. But
Gotcha.
you can't stuff, there's top secret stuff. There's
Yeah.
right, there's so much going on. You can't actually be specific. You can
Hmm.
just talk about how you feel, and how you are feeling affects your behavior, your stress levels and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
work to support that, at home rather than, just dumping.
Gotcha. Well, so what are some techniques people can use to prevent carrying the stress, the
Yeah.
work related stress home?
Okay. Good. So the pandemic showed us that drive to work was significant.
Hmm.
When that time going to work and that time coming from work is significant. And so what I tell individuals, well, if they're at home, I'll say something different. But if you are a commuter to work, respect the time that it takes to get home.
Hmm.
So what I suggest a lot of times is throughout the day. So first, this starts throughout the day. In your work day, pick 3 times when you can get up and move away from your desk. So that's
Mm.
one thing, right? So we find 3 times when you can get away from your desk. Secondly, during the ride home on high stressful days, take a different route with the music off.
Mm.
So communicate to your spouse or to people at home and say, "Hey, I had a stressful day at work. I'm going to, take a little while to decompress." And so what you're doing is you're taking a different route, which is, maybe a tad bit longer. Cut off the radio.
Hmm.
And while you're doing that, step 3 is to participate in deep breathing while you're driving.
Hmm.
So by bringing the air through your nose and out through your mouth, or even holding one nostril and breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth that way, connects to your sympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system that regulates emotions,
Hmm.
and it helps de-stress you. Now, it's not perfect. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not perfect, but you know have that, do those techniques, those breathing techniques to help de-escalate you. And I would add a bonus. If your spouse is a supportive spouse, understand, say that, hey, when I get home, or have this, talk about this beforehand, or
Hmm.
have this plan. When I say that I have stressful days, give me about 10, 15 minutes, of home time before the kids come, or before,
Mm.
we get into anything. Because what that does, it helps with, decompressing and releasing in your safe space, which is supposed to be home.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, one of the big things and themes that you touched on during this whole interview really has been about communication. I think that that's
Exactly.
powerful because I think
Yeah.
we as black men have always been kind of taught to hold things in,
Yeah.
and holding things in is what causes all of this extra stress and pressure on us.
Hmm.
But then again, the other thing, which kind of leads me to this next point, is how do we communicate effectively the
Yeah.
struggles to our employers without risking their professional thoughts about us and reputation.
Yeah. So if we're looking from an employment standpoint, so let's just talk about work.
Hmm.
What does it look like to allow yourself to communicate at work? The first thing is, if you have a boss, there should have been some type of communication about how you like to be, um, mentored or managed. So that's
Hmm.
one. Secondly, asking the boss when, historically, when there have been issues, how do you like me or like your individuals to bring, struggles to you,
Hmm.
right? Do you like email? Do you like short, in the hallways or whatever? So a lot of it has to do with understanding the culture of the person that is, or the personality
Yep.
of the person that is managing, the culture of your department in conjunction to the culture of the organization that you
Hmm.
work for. And it is hopeful that the organization allows for communication, while understanding that there's only but so much you communicate, and there is some certain things you have to eat. And what I mean by that is, there's things that will happen at work
Hmm.
that you communicate that will not get fixed and may not get fixed. And you have to ask yourself, am I going to tolerate that it's not, that is not fixed, or I'm going to accept it?
Hmm.
When we tolerate something at work that is not fixed, it's a high level of emotion,
Yeah.
right? It's tons of weight. If we go to the acceptance, we say this is the culture, or this is how they are. It has nothing to do about me. We take the responsibility back on us and say, okay, how are we going to manage, being in this culture,
Hmm.
knowing this is how things are with this organization or with this person? Because a lot of times, the reason why our stress levels are so high is
Hmm.
because we feel out of control. And we are. Let's be perfectly candid. If you
Hmm.
don't own it,
Yep.
you're going to feel out of control.
Yep.
So you have to learn how to manage that while understanding what is going, accepting that this is where I chose to work.
Mm. No, that's powerful again because I know for myself, and I'm being transparent. I think one of the things for me in all of my years of being in management, it's I hold people to a high standard, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that when they don't live up to that standard, it
Yep.
stresses me out. You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and I've had to learn just in my management style throughout my career in information technology and entertainment and all of that. I've had to learn that I can't hold people to the same high standard because everybody's not going to operate at that level,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not my fault if they don't operate at that. I've had to release that, learn to release that in my career, So
Yeah.
I
You
get it.
can't ask people to be you. I mean, and
Exactly.
that's really what it is.
Yep.
You can't ask people to be you. And a lot of times in management, we're really asking people to be them or
Hmm.
you without actually, outwardly discussing the parameters of the relationship.
Yep.
And a part of that parameters of the relationship is we can have standards and expectations, but let them be realistic and individualistic as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm. Wow. I tell you, it's been a a awesome show with you, and I would do this again in a heartbeat. I think you have so much information, and I know you don't have a lot of time to give like that.
Hey man, for you guys, man, you guys are the best. I'm
Hey.
be honest with you, man. You guys, I'm not sure if the people know, you guys were on my show.
You guys did amazing. I love y'all. So y'all the best. I always got time for people I like. It's
I
just people I
appreciate
don't like.
it. I truly appreciate it. With that, I want you to have the last word. So I want you to give people some words of encouragement and insight about Mr. King and just your view on mental health and its importance.
Yeah. So this is I'm going to be I'm gonna try to be as specific as possible because, as my friends has told me, I can be long-winded. Just understand the things that we actually think affect how our life, moves forward.
Mhm.
And what I mean to say that is, or what I'm saying is, our cognition or the things that we think turns into our behavior. And so if we're thinking negative thoughts, we will behave in negative way.
Mhm.
If we're allowing, ourselves to go further down without actually recognizing that it's time to actually speak to someone, we're only going to make our life, harder. Specifically for men, what I need for you to do is find a circle of people that allow you to take off your mask.
Mhm.
So that means allow you to actually be all the you that you can be. Because what that will do is that will disarm you and allow you to speak more freely. Next, what I would also like for men is to understand that they're not supposed to have all the answers.
Mhm.
And so by connecting with someone who you have the ability to be taught or ability to decompress with or commune with or be counseled by, find that person and understand that it's not your job to actually fix everything. And if you're in counseling, it's not the counselor's job to fix you. The
Mhm.
counselor's job is specifically there to help guide you. So you can even have, your mental health can either be healthy or unhealthy. All I'm asking is have healthy thoughts,
Mhm.
understand that discomfort is natural, and connect with those that feed you.
Mm. And with that, tonight's guest, Mr. Eric L. King, President of Mental and Emotional Wellness Centers of Ohio, a licensed professional clinical counselor. We thank you so much for coming to the Median Society. You are an excellent friend of TMS. We are here to assist you any way we can. And, we're partners now. That's it.
I appreciate that.
That's what we are. That's who we are. We're loyal to all that come on the Median Society.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate everything you do. Keep doing it. And I'm going to keep talking about it and keep, telling people.
Awesome.
So, and as you know, you busy, I'm busy. So
Yep.
I'm going to do the best that I can.
Hey, we're going to connect. I guarantee you there's more to come. We always try to connect with every person that comes on the show, and we will do the same with you. I want to thank our audience tonight. Thank you so much for listening and viewing the Median Society. Whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or any of the other podcast platforms, or on our new and improved YouTube channel, just look up the Median Society. We always have new shows that the video version of the shows pop up every 2.5 weeks as we give our time to saturate our marketplace when it comes to the podcasts that are out. Continue listening to us on Apple and Spotify. Look for the Median Society with Anthony Mitchell. Thank you so much. We're out. Peace.